Hi everyone. We're starting today to present something that is very challenging, something that every one of us see on a daily basis in the workplace. One of the biggest challenges that we continuously face is simply, in the morning it's too hard for us to go to work. For numerous amount of reasons, and it varies between I don't like my job, my boss is angry all the time, it's very hard on me, I don't find a passion in that. Looking deep into what it is all about when it comes to not wanting to go to work in the morning, I realized it's about more than what the boss is all about or the culture is all about. It's deeper than what the surface is showing. Today we will be speaking about rehumanizing the workplace, because from my work in the past 2 years as an executive coach and a positive failure, I realized that it is extremely, extremely important for us as human beings to treat ourselves as well as to be treated from the work environment as human beings. A couple of days ago, I read an article in the Financial Times, and in this article, I've read this part. Yeah. And the quote is all about, I'm a fraud. Yeah. I'm not good. I'm not good enough for what I'm doing. I am terrified to get caught. It is very hard on me. It's extremely hard to work as something that I don't know what to do in. It's very hard for each and every one of us to really live in that status of mind, emotion on a daily basis. After reading this and while preparing the presentation for this talk, I have realized that a number of my clients come to me, an executive level or even mothers or as well school students, come to me and tell me lots about the things that they are worried about. They are worried about they are not good enough. They are worried about I cannot say my idea because my idea is not worth enough. As long as I'm doing the work I should do the same way as it's done, then I'm good. If I try to come up with a new idea, someone in the environment around me will come and tell me, no, it's not a good idea. Or, oh my God, you failed. It didn't work. It's hard. It's tough. Just be with everyone else. It's easier. My son was in one of the schools earlier, and he had a problem in the school. When I went to school, he came and the counselor came and said, well, your son is definitely wrong. I said, how is that? How could that be? He came like, he's a child, and the adult is always right. Another mother that I'm coaching came to me and said, oh, I cannot be on my son's side against the teacher. Why? Because being on my son's side, the teacher will put my son on the radar. And at that place, it's extremely tough for him. No, let me be against my son so that he wouldn't be on the radar. It's tough. It's hard when you are spotted to be someone that is not following the system, someone that is against the system. A number of testimonies, people from top FMGs come and tell me, well, it's too hard for me to come up with an idea, even if I'm the boss. People in the investment banking, it's too hard for me to say I don't know. I have to know it all. Because if I seek help, if I ask for help, oh my God, it will be disastrous. If I am known not to know, then at that space and time, I will be judged. People will start asking me about why did we hire you? You have to know it all. And from that space, I realized that humanity is trapped. We, as human beings, are trapped in our fears. Each and every one of us has an idea of what is ideal, what is perfect, what should be, what is a must. So we're spending our days, each and every day of our lives, in anxiety, in fear, in worry, number of things that is stopping us from actually being who we are. Human beings by nature are creative, resourceful. This is how we are. We are learning creatures. We cannot live if we don't learn and grow. Whatever the reasons are that is taking this away from us, it's taking our lives from us. If we don't learn, if we don't grow, this is extremely, extremely devastating for us as a human being. Looking into the reasons, I thought about having machine as a symbol for human being currently, in this era. But thinking thoroughly and looking deep into it, how many of you, when their laptop breaks down, actually go and fire their anger at their laptop? It's simply, we go to people where they are professionals, get our laptops fixed. We never get furious at our laptops because our laptops was not fixed, or didn't function as we expected, or didn't do the must and the should that they should do. So as a machine, no, we're not even treated as a machine. We're neither human, having all the rights, nor machines that simply can operate, and whenever they are broken, they are fixed. We are, if I may name it, we are dehumanizing ourselves. We're taking humanity away from who we are. And we're doing this with complete persistence. And when the title was about dehumanizing or rehumanizing the workplace, I didn't mean the workplace as it being in the corporate world, but the workplace that we as humans operate. We operate in a number of contexts. We operate at home, this is a workplace. We operate with friends, this is a workplace. We operate at corporations that we belong to, this is a workplace. And what do we get? We get the following. Let's have a journey on the workplace culture. Blaming. If you're not blamed by others, you blame yourself. As simple as that. And continuously, it's a practice that we more and more do and more do. And when we start blaming, we're depriving humanity from being what it is. Being faulty, they do mistakes, learn from it, create, innovate, and come up with brilliant ideas. But when we start blaming, what happens is we tell ourselves and we tell the community around us that no. A mistake is a shame. You should not by all means be mistaken. One of the organizations that I coach some people in, the CEO simply had an affair with his secretary. What happened is they got that secretary, blamed her to the top of it, shamed her, fired her, because the system is more important than the human. The system should not look bad. We simply blame the girl, fire her, because this is the easy way. When blame is the way out for problems, here we're still trapped in fear. Humanity is dehumanized when blame is used against it. The second concept that I continuously see coaching executives, mid-management, fresh graduates, as well as youth, is covering up. At schools, at universities, corporations, even us. If you're late for a friend, you wouldn't say, I'm late because, but you will try to come up with something that looks great. And you will try to be victimized in a sense that would tell you, okay, fine, no problem, being late is okay. So we try to cover up on a number of aspects. And while covering up, the problem is the system, again, is more important than the human in it, operating in it. When the system is more important, or the system symbol, as in the case of the CEO and the affair with his secretary, the system was more important. If you look, for example, in the corporate world, yes, you are identified on a metric system. Good, bad, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But 5 is only for the extraordinary, for the perfect, for the very good. A couple of days I had a meeting with one of the organizations, and their biggest challenge is that the majority of their team and the majority of their members in the organization are extra performers. And the bell shape doesn't fit them. So what they need to do is take these people, the extra performers, not acknowledge it, and tell them you cannot be extra performing because I cannot, by the system of the organization, allow you to be an extra performer. So simply what they do, instead of giving them 5 on their scale, they downgrade them to 4 because the system doesn't allow people to stay at 5. A lot of them at 5 cost the organization, cost the system money. And that's exactly how we dehumanize. We take away the right of humanity, the right of achievement, the right of properness, the right of contribution, the right of creativity and innovation, and tell them the system doesn't fit. It's not right. It's not acceptable. Moving on and looking into how does that happen, and realize that our systems in the workplace lead through shame. They shame people to let them perform. They shame people to allow them to commit more and feel bad about themselves, to actually do the extra mile. We do that in schools. So if your son or my daughter or your sister or brother or whatever achieved in a space where it was creative, innovative, proactive, unless it's reflected on a grade, it won't be. My son last year came up with an idea of creating a boat from cardboard and scotch tape. And he did a beautiful job that everyone, the entire school, was like hilariously happy with the product because it floated, it was in the sea, they tried it, they tested, it was something amazing. But yet, by the end of the year, I received an email from his school counselor telling me, well, your son's grade in history is not up to the adequate performance. And that would affect definitely our overall view on your son. Despite the fact that he has done something great, it was not mentioned in any document out of the school. And this is the American system that is supposed to be extremely creative, extremely innovative, and extremely engaging and interacting. I was extremely surprised and said, you cannot evaluate a child on a grade. But unfortunately, I realized that we do that everywhere. We start shaming people, we start telling them what they should not do, what is wrong, what is not correct, what is against the system, and what is not fitting into the criteria of the system. And when you start shaming people, the biggest disaster is you dehumanize them. You take away from them the right of being human. Because humanity is all about trying, is all about exploring, is all about adventure, is all about getting to know something that I didn't know. No one could ever know everything, and for you to actually go and get to know, you need courage. You need vulnerability. You need to be sometimes weak and ask for help. But the problem is, When we dehumanize, we take away all of this. We take away the right from humanity to actually be weak and ask for help. To actually be mistaken and admit that I'm wrong. It's okay to be wrong. Taking that into consideration, I named dehumanization corporate cancer or workplace cancer. Because it's all over us. I bet that all of you right now, related to an incident or another, right now, that relates to what I'm saying. Each and every one of us has this book of I did it wrong one day and I was not appreciated for it. Or I'm not good enough. Or it's not working. Or I don't have it. And more and more and more of these things. When we dehumanize, when this cancer starts spreading into our workplace, what happens is people disengage. They simply don't want it anymore. Gallup last year done a research and found that the American economy loses $450 to $550 billion yearly due to disengagement. People, when they disengage, it's not only that they don't show up, it's not only that they don't contribute, it's not only that they don't care, but they justify unethical behaviors. They justify fraud, they justify cheating, they justify stealing, and when it happens, when people literally disengage, this is what happens. Simply, big loss. If students are not engaged into the workplace, schools and universities, what happens is, simply, they just miss it. They justify smoking, they justify aggression, they justify paying back to the system because the system didn't respect them, the system didn't trust them, the system didn't care. As simple as that. And yet, we are still dehumanizing our workplaces, and we still care for the system rather than our care for the human beings in the system. When we don't show up, when we don't contribute, when we don't care, when we practice blaming and covering up, what happens is we slow fail. You know, the quick failing, the trip and the coming up, it's okay. It's great. It's a lesson. What kills humanity and what kills the workplace and the corporate world is slow failing. When things happen very minutely, a bit by a bit by a bit, it ends up to be the norm. It ends up to be accepted. It ends up to be okay. And this is exactly what happens when we don't show up, when we don't care, when we don't contribute. When we start blaming on the small thing as well as the big thing, it comes as a norm in the system. A couple of meetings ago in one of the organizations, the biggest challenge was to find who to blame. I was consulting them on a big issue, and 4 of the top directors coming from different parts of the world. I'm not saying it's for one culture or another, it's universal. 4 of the directors that were sitting, all that they cared about to find who to blame. Because they need it. They need to feed the system on who has done it wrong. They didn't think what to do or what to fix or how to do it. They were completely disengaged. They really didn't care. But all they cared about simply who to blame. And what is the corrective action that we will take to cover up the mess? That's the word. Cover up the mess. Imagine how much disengagement hurts you as a human being when all what you're looking for is someone to blame and to cover up the mess. On the other side, dehumanizing the workplace. back to humanity, back to the actual, proper, engaging, creating, trustful, hopeful environment. How does that happen? How could it happen? I'm sure each and every one of you came with something in their head. What would you suggest? Do you have any ideas that you'd like to share before me going further? How would you rehumanize yourself as much as the workplace that you are operating in? Are all of us shutting up with our heads down because we don't have the courage to raise a voice and say something that might the other people see as silly, stupid, not right, not correct? Doesn't make any sense.
It's true, actually. It's true.
Right? We're doing it every day, every single moment. I gave all of you the chance to speak up your mind, but yet the bigger player was, oh my God, if I said it, how would other people judge me? And that's exactly what happens on a daily basis. We miss chances to grow. We miss chances to flourish. We miss chances to be what we hope and love and long for because we're trapped in our fears. Because we're dehumanizing ourselves before even the culture around us dehumanizes. So let me take you on a journey. How can you beat your own saboteurs? How can you, in a place like that, be able to raise up your voice and say, yes, this is my idea. This is what I think. Because what I think matters. If it doesn't matter to everyone, it matters to me. And this is why I'm doing these talks. Because what I think matters. If there's one in the room, or 5,000, it's not it. It's what I think matters, even for someone or someone that is only me. In a rehumanized space, people are held accountable for the most important aspect in it, human being. In that space, what happens is trust is the biggest and the only factor that plays around. Trust in me, trust in the community, and trust in the good of everyone. If we are to be able to develop trust through allowing mistakes and failures to happen, we will be allowing ourselves to grow. We will be allowing ourselves to take that step, that extremely courageous step, out of our comfort zone and simply step that in a sense or a manner or a way that serves our dreams and our humanity to the best of it. The second aspect is empathy. Empathy is empathizing with yourself before even empathizing with the community around you. The minute you start looking at yourself differently, looking at yourself from a number of angles, everything will change. Because it's completely wrong to punish yourself on what you don't have as much as deprive yourself from what you have. It's equal. If I deprive myself from what I have, it's as equal as punishing myself on my mistake. So, how to empathize with the self? How can I look into things differently? One of the people that I worked with earlier was a micromanager. Looks into tiny details. It doesn't leave a room to anything or a space for something to happen and take space. from his perspective and from my perspective at the time, it was extremely horrible and totally wrong. I judged him fully. But when looking at it from a number of other perspectives, from a strength perspective, micromanagement is a reflection of commitment, is a reflection of integrity, is a reflection of really, really wanting to do it right. Is it in the service? Yes or no? That's a different story. But if we look into things from a strength perspective rather than from a weakness perspective, from what works in it rather than what doesn't work in it, things will be totally different. If you start looking at your weaknesses and finding the strengths in these weaknesses and how does it serve you, you will start empathizing with yourself as much as others. Discomfort is neutralized, not avoided, when you're healing. In rehumanized workplaces, we don't avoid discomfort. Discomfort is okay. It's good to inform your subordinates that discomfort will happen. It's good to explain why it will happen, because learning process is all about getting discomfort. You cannot learn when you're completely comfortable. Any of you in the room, if you are extremely comfortable at what you're doing, then it's time to move on. Staying there is not in your service. Unless you're not comfortable, unless you're challenged, unless you're getting into the new, then, only then, you're growing and you're servicing yourself. If you're completely comfortable, that means something's gone wrong. And the beauty of discomfort is when you don't avoid it, it pays back. And the payback is amazing. But how to neutralize it? How can I step into discomfort courageously? How can each and every one of you, when I ask the question and they have the idea in their mind, come up and speak it out? Neutralizing discomfort is very important. And this happens when you look at the strengths of your weaknesses. When, yes, I'm weak, yes, I might judge myself negatively, and how does that serve me? How does that play into the service of who I am? And it's okay, I'm human at the end. I could do a mistake, and from that mistake, I will definitely get a lesson. Positive failure. When I gave myself positive failure, I received tons of fearful emails telling me, "Are you crazy? How dare you name yourself a positive failure? What were you thinking? What were you thinking, coupling yourself with a failure in a space where all what you're promoting to or dealing with, making people exceed their obstacles, come over their challenges? How dare yourself associate yourself with failure?" But I realized that without failure, I wouldn't have been in that space. Without not feeling bad about tons of things that I have done, and I haven't done it right, I wouldn't have been here. Without realizing that, despite the fact that I was a director for an investment bank managing 2 countries, it was a failure, and that was not my space. My space is here, coaching people into the best that they could ever be. If I didn't admit my positive failure at that space, I wouldn't have been able to move forward, to achieve and actually execute what I love the most. I was with a reporter on the telephone, and she said, "Positive failure? No, I cannot put this on the paper. That's too much negative context to put you in." I said, "Okay, how much do you take challenge by coming up with a crazy article, presenting it to your boss?" She said, no, I don't do that. I play it safe. I know what's the line of the magazine, or what I do is come up with ideas that matches the editors. taste. This is the laugh I hear always. That's exactly what we do. We run away from our positive failures. We allow people to rub away our talents. We allow people around us to take away the pleasure of failing, learning, and getting it right the next time. And if you don't fail, learning never happens. And if there's no mess, then trust me, you're heading nowhere. When positive failure is accepted, is permitted in organizations and workplace, it leads to something beautiful, practicing vulnerability. It leads to, okay, me crying in a boardroom. It leads to, okay, me writing an article and it's not working. It didn't get the number of likes that I expected. It's okay, me running a talk today, expecting this room to be filled with the number of the seats, and it didn't. Would that stop me from doing it next month? No. Would that take away the pleasure of having all of you here? Of course not. If I am today to look only at the empty seats and forget about the full one, I will not hold my talk next month. But if I look at the full seats and say, yes, it worked, but I'm extremely upset and sad because there is a number of empty seats, that's being vulnerable. That's being okay. I'm human. Taking this away from you as human beings deprive you from growing up and learning and getting to be better. When you practice vulnerability, when you're okay with exposing your emotions, magic happens. You can take more risk. You can simply come up with ideas that are not into the line of everything around you. And all of these challenging, uncertainty, craziness of the moment turns to be noise. It's okay. If it didn't happen today, it can happen tomorrow. But the most important thing, I have the full persistence, the full insistence to go further and to achieve what I am all about, being human. When, again, we rehumanize the workplace, we lead by presence. We don't lead by shame anymore. We don't go shame people that are not engaged and tell them, you're punished because you're not engaged. You go ask them, what can I do for you to get engaged? How can I be present for you to actually help you and get engaged? Because simply telling them that they are not good, shaming them that they are not engaged, doesn't serve. They know it very well. You don't need to shame anyone by their mistakes. You don't need to highlight mistakes for people. They know it better than anyone else. But when you're offering yourself and leading by presence, when you're telling people around you that it's very important for me that you achieve, how can I be of help? How can I add to your journey and allow you to explore more who you are? That's leading by presence. That leading by existing and being there for them rather than anything else. And that's humanity. Presence and being with. When you rehumanize the workplace, you create what you call flourished engagement. It's not an engagement because I have to do it, or it's a must. No, it's an engagement because I enjoy being in that space. I'm scared? Yes. I did mistakes? Yes. I'm totally in a mess? Yes. But yet, it's the space where I would allow myself to actually perform to the best that I know, or could be. And when you are in that space, what happens is, your vocabulary change. And if each and every one of you do a list of vocabulary, and I do it in all my talks, I advise people to come up and look at their vocabulary. And from that vocabulary, you would start knowing, where are you? In a flourished engagement environment, in a humanized environment, trust is the major player. Trust is most important, and it is actually the thing that plays it all. Respect for the human beings is on top of the values of the space. And when respect for the human being is there, when you respect yourself as a human being, capable of things and incapable of others, doing mistakes and learning from them, getting scared and uncomfortable and being able to come over some of the challenges and some are not. That's the language that you will be using. You will always, I need. I was wrong. It's my responsibility. It's my mistake. I'm okay with it. Let's go ahead. Don't stick in the problem. Let's find a solution. You will keep on, I feel so and so and so and so. I care for so and so and so and so. How many of you, this is the language that you use in the workplace? How much do you say, I don't know? I cannot not know. Especially if I'm leading. Because I was hired, because I know. How much of you would come and say, thank you? Out of nowhere. How much of us is willing to solicit feedback? Tell me what you think about me. How many of us are openly willing to go and ask people what you think about me? I think on me. I'm a life coach, and sometimes, in some contexts, I think 1,000 times before asking feedback. I am afraid that what is said is hurtful. I am afraid that what is said is challenging, that I cannot take it anymore. That's human, and it's okay. But for me to have this flourished engagement with the entire community, environment, workplace that I'm dealing with, it needs me to actually go and ask about feedback. And it's my call to take it on board or no. People might say yes, people might say no. People might say good, people might say bad. And out of that is the learning. Out of that is the full experience. The experience is not staying here and telling you. The experience is listening back from you. How did it go? What worked and what didn't work? Where do I need to grow? Because as human beings, we cannot stop growing. Intellectually, physically, and emotionally. Every single moment we live, we grow. Whether we like it or no, it takes enjoying it or no, what really matters. To rehumanize the workplace, you need to keep learning, innovation, and creativity glowing. It's very important that these three things are on top of our mind, are on top of our value system. If we deprive ourselves from learning, we will never be human. If we deprive ourselves from creativity, again, we will never be creating. We will never be human. By nature, God created us, the creative of whoever it is, created us as creative creatures. We can find it all and we can get to know it all just by allowing it to happen. How does that happen? It happens by permitting positive failure. Allowing ourselves to fail. Getting out of the comfort zone, step into our discomfort courageously, and finding means and manners to neutralize it. It's either through people around us, or through evidence that it worked earlier, or through experiences that we would like eventually to step in. But we have to start permitting positive failure. And not only expect that our leaders would grant us this, because your leader is as scared as you are. And It might be he's more scared than you are. But what will actually give you is permitting yourself and allowing yourself to positively fail. Second thing is granting and practicing vulnerability. Say I need help. When you need help, say it. When you're mistaken, admit it. Whatever the consequences are, the benefit out of it is outraging. Say that I've done it wrong. Say that I don't know and I need someone to tell me how to do it. If the organization fired you because you said I don't know, then it's in your best favor. Some people say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not a dreamer. On the other side, a dreamer is the one that would allow a space to take away humanity out of their hearts. But just stepping into the space of, I don't know, and if they fire me because I don't know, then I'll find another place that would teach me and allow me to learn. Because simply learning never happens when your mouth is shut and heads are down. Learning cannot happen like that. It doesn't work. Learning happens when you're open to the experience, whatever it is. In the core of learning, the heart of learning is vulnerability. And being okay to be vulnerable, to be there in the space with the uncertainty, with the emotional exposure that you might be subjected to, and knowing that you're resourceful enough to overcome it. No one is not resourceful enough. It's simply that we're not tapping into our resources because we were convinced one day or another that we don't have any. The third thing is feedback, soliciting, giving, and receiving. In your folders, you'll find the paper where, when are you ready for feedback? I remember whenever I was into the stage of getting feedback, or what I did is build my armor and get ready for the fight. I never was into the space of, okay, tell me. It was always about getting ready for the fight. Feedback is about fight. It's about wronging. It's about proving me wrong. It's about proving me mistaken. It's about me a disaster. As much as you should be ready to receive feedback, you should be equally ready to give feedback. If you are in a status of mind that prepares you to blame someone, to attack someone, and you're justifying it to yourself, because when we start giving feedback in an attacking way, we go like, they deserve it. They've done 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and actually they deserve it. Justifying attack is an armor that we operate behind because we're weak. Being present in the feedback, being there for someone and telling them that you've done this much great, this space you need to grow in, how can I be of help and support to you to grow at that space? This is how our education system should treat students. This is our workplace should treat employees, and at the same space, this is how we should treat ourselves. Yes, give yourself feedback. Solicit your feedback from your own self, but be ready to give and receive. Armors doesn't work. It doesn't pay back. And that's it. Of challenges I know this talk have created in your head. A number of people, when I go speak to universities, they come back and tell me, you're not real. You don't know. What is the challenge that you would like to challenge me in? The story that you have, and you just simply want to tell me that all what I have said doesn't work in reality? Who has something that would like to be presented right here and now, just to tell me that what I have said is too hard to be implemented? What questions do you have for me in that space of being human again? Be human and do mistakes and just ask. Whatever you feel like is a challenge for you.
What is the reason behind that? Is it inherent in the corporate culture of the big as well as small companies, or is it only, I mean, I know that companies like Google, for example, or Google,
Yeah.
Apple, they have very different corporate cultures.
Mm-hmm.
But in general,
The corporate
if you tell a
culture.
meeting,
Mhm.
if you're in the middle of a meeting and your boss asks you and you say you don't know, then
Mhm.
they show you the door.
I highly agree. What created this at the very beginning is the culture of scarcity that we've been passing through a number of recessions that took place since the 1990s, or actually since the Great Recession. In the US, this culture of scarcity, I don't have enough. We are completely insecure internally as much as externally, with all the disasters that is happening all around us. A sense of insecurity is growing inside us. A sense of not knowing what tomorrow could give us and what could happen is fully nurturing this culture of you should do it or else you're out. When September 11 happened, lots of people realized that it's unsafe to live. It's very hard for us to sustain living. So let's grab as much as possible. Let's bow our heads. Until the wind passes. But the continuous hits that humanity is getting more over and more over and more over is proving to be so hard for people to grab into their humanity and stay there. I had one of the executive in one of the organizations kept telling me, okay, they say bend until the winds blow. Let it pass. And unfortunately, my back is broken. I cannot bend anymore. It's hurtful. I cannot do it anymore. So the number of disasters that we're living in, one thing, the economical status of celebrity that we're seeing all over the places, that the happiness and the laughter and the glamorous is all about owning assets as opposed to being who we are. It is highly affecting as well. In a scared culture where jobs, security are rare aspects, this glamorous look makes us feel like, oh my God, this is all about it. And I was on that space one day. It was very important for me, my bag and my shoe, what brands are they. It was who I am. I identified my worth into my bag and shoe. And once we're trapped into assets, then it's very hard for us to realize our true self, our existence, our worth in who we are. Once we are trapped into our titles, I'm a CEO, I'm a CFO, I am a team leader, I am an office boy. Even office boys get trapped into their titles. And they act small because they are just office boys. What are we supposed to be? I am just an office boy. The more you get trapped into your assets, the more the challenge would be, and the more the dehumanization in the workplace would happen. The more you get out of your assets and relate to the existence of your human being, to the learning experience, the more you would be achieving and growing.
This kind of has an insinuation that we can, in a way, change the world.
Yeah.
The problem is that the entire corporate structure is based on how much you know or don't know. You get paid more because you know more than that person or that person. And it's not a very forgiving environment where you need to always be very shrewd. And being professional, for example, is sitting in the face of adversity when you probably want to cry your butt off, but you just have to act professional. So going against all of that corporate, as beautiful as it could be to rehumanize it, but how do you go about changing the entire work scope where everybody is working in that function? How do you change that? I mean, you start with yourself and then you're against your company as a starting point. Where do you go from there?
Okay, I can answer that by giving you a story. One of the people in the sales team that I used to manage came to me and said, "You want me to be vulnerable? Are you crazy? How am I supposed to tell a client that coming to sign a multi-million-dollar investment that I don't know? How come? You want me to be fired tomorrow? I cannot afford to be fired tomorrow. This is a no-go." It's not about telling, I don't know only. It's about how telling it. If that client, the multi-million-dollar client, received an answer, a haphazard answer that has no meaning of telling left, right, and center things just to cover up the mess of not me knowing, trust me, you will not come tomorrow. And yes, if you're not out of the door today, you'll be after tomorrow. But I could simply say, I don't have enough information that supports this discussion now. I'll get you all the information within this period of time, come back to you, and I will explain thoroughly. If you trust that integrity, authenticity is in the service of your job, it will help. It's not about just declaring that I don't know. It's not about crying at the face of whatever problem that you're facing. Yes, you can cry, literally. But what else would you do? Besides crying, depriving yourself from the right to cry is a crime. But sticking into that space only is a bigger crime. Yes, you can cry, definitely. What else? And what next? Incidents happen. Definitely. The most important thing is having enough richness in you to allow you to step forward and take the challenge of whatever is given to you. Authentically and with full truth. A lie doesn't serve. It might serve your seat today, but tomorrow now. If you remember the quote that I got from the Financial Times, it's all about, I'm a fraud, because there is nothing real in me. And that space is extremely, extremely challenging to live in. As equally challenging as when you are faced by a problem and you don't know, and you promise not to deliver in a way or another for a certain period of time, coming back and re-emphasizing. This is how I believe my friend in the sales environment managed her life now. And she is a top achiever currently. And people trust her. There is scarcity of trust in the workplace that when we act authentically makes hell of a difference.
So you think that authenticity can counteract the fact that there is a corporate culture there that needs to change as a starting point as well? I mean, that also, let's say you do that on an individual basis, and then there's the general culture that is out there, the corporate world, the way companies manage their team, whoever they are up the hierarchy. What do you do on that front? Awareness? I mean, what can be done on that?
Mm-hmm. These type of talks is done on a corporate level as well. I am trying my best to start educating the corporate world, schools and university, on these three things. Because if these three things didn't happen, if these three things are in place, the American economy wouldn't have been losing $550 billion every year. Yes, they are not seeing it because money is in the driver's seat. I agree. I fully agree and relate. But it takes one to start. Yes, on the corporate world, we have to start educating. We have to start bringing up things, telling people, showing people how this is in the benefit of the corporation rather than it is against it. But just staying and being part of it doesn't help.
But I think it all depends on how much confidence you have, because it's one thing to admit that you don't know things, and it's a totally different thing to stand against the system. So you stand against the system, the corporate system, when you are confident and you know that you are respected in that institution and they need you. Because if you have 3 kids at home and you're not sure that whatever you're saying against the system is taken in the right way, you don't do it. That's the reality of things. It's utopic to say, that we all start to fight against the system, because I know that if I have 3 kids at home and I have a boss who tells me it's either my way or the highway, I know I'm in a lucky position, for example, and it's a personal thing. I know that here, for example, I can say at any point that I don't agree with this, that I think that in that way it's a better way, that I don't know certain things. And they just tell me how to do it, or they help me. I can say, I messed up, please help me. But I'm sure that there are so many people that are in different positions. So I think it all depends on how much the organization needs you and how vulnerable you are.
You are. I highly agree. Back to the story again of the 3 kids at home, taking a conscious decision that I will shut my mouth up and put my head down and don't learn because of my 3 kids is an authentic and integral decision in itself. Taking it while I am a victim plays a big role. But taking it out of a conscious decision that it's more important for me to serve my 3 kids back at home and not crying on the decision and weeping on, oh my God, I had to do it, you made me do it, and blaming my family because I'm doing it for them. Conscious decision, mindful understanding on my position is very, very crucial for humanity. If I am to rehumanize myself as much as the people around me, I cannot put myself in a position where every day when I see my son, I think that he is the reason of my misery. If I would take a conscious decision that I will compete at that space and time with my mouth shut and my head down because I cannot in the favor of my child, then I have to take that decision courageously and not being a victim under it.
Yeah, but there are alternatives. I mean, instead of fighting against the corporate system in your place of work, you can be as well looking for another job in the moment you have it. It's another challenge. You're still learning, you're still developing, but not necessarily fighting against a system that doesn't work in the way you want it.
I agree. I couldn't fight the financial system. It was so hard for me to be an investment bank. I've done it perfectly. I was on top of my job. I was the only director in an organization that is all males. The only females were on secretarial level. I couldn't fight the system. It was so tough on me.
Exactly, and you changed.
I chose, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Humanity is not around just being there because I had to be there. Take a conscious decision. Move up, keep in courageously, or move out with a challenge.
Exactly, not necessarily to
And
go like this and fight against it, just choose something else, but you still grow, you still learn.
And by that, I'm still fighting the system.
You can still change.
I agree. I still believe I will be changing the system. If I manage to change one leader, I would be able to change the system one day. Could not be tomorrow, it could be don't know when, but it would happen. Fingers crossed, exactly.
So what you're saying actually is the system you talk about the system, but the system are people. So, sorry. We're doing the system. So it's 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. This is the system.
I highly agree. Thank you so much.
We can't blame and say, oh, it's the system and blah. Actually, we are doing the system. So responsibility, and you just said it, it starts with one. So if you one takes the responsibility, I mean, you take it for yourself. So you don't even look at the others.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe this will influence somehow.
I agree.
Yeah, so you start with yourself.
And it
And
takes
it's
courage.
responsibility for
Definitely.
yourself.
Definitely. Courage is the word. And there's a huge, you know that there's a huge difference between courage and bravery. When you're brave, you just do it because you know you can. And you definitely win at the end. But when you're courageous, you go with your knees shaking and feeling like, oh my God, but yet I'll take responsibility towards myself and whatever else I would like to take responsibility through, and step into that challenge and make it happen. How about rehumanizing our own self at home? How much do we shame and blame and cover up for our children, for our sisters, for our brothers?
Do you mean to say that making a difference is, going back to your story about when you left the bank, yeah, and you made a difference? I think you would like to tell us that it's more worth it to make a difference, to be courageous enough. And when you make a difference, it doesn't matter if you fail in one part, but the next step would be, you climb up the ladder and you try to be successful step by step.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
making a difference. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's like
The ladder should not all be clear. I draw my step every time to find something to hang in. And trust me, the next step is not shown.
Okay. My other question is, it's not much about rehumanizing the workplace. It's about being a life coach like you. So, for example, somebody hires a life coach, okay, to help him develop, enhance. And I'd like to know if you're hired, for example.
If I am hired, okay.
I hire you, for example, to lead me, okay? How long will you be there for me, or how long should I hire you before I become my own mentor?
First of all, how long is a different story. This is all in your hand. I cannot tell how long at all. And having a life coach, I have a life coach. So it's a continuous process. About life coaching, let me explain a little bit about life coaching. Life coaching is not advisory. It's not telling you what's good for you and what's bad for you. Your entire life, you've been told what's good and bad for you. How come you come and pay someone else to tell you what to do again? Life coaching is about allowing you to look into your strengths and get really, really attached to them. Get really, really knowing how resourceful are you? What are your resources? And where would you like to deploy these resources into the favor, the best you could ever be? It's not about telling you what's right and wrong. It's not about fixing you, because as a life coach, I believe every single human being is completely fixed. No one is broken. No one. The weakest ones are not broken. They just not have access to the resources, the tools that would allow them to go through their journey that they are passing through. I only introduce you to your own toolbox to help you in your own journey. How long will it take? I cannot tell. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, it's a continuous process. I'm continuously growing. And I would never stop growing. And I would never stop exploring for more tools and more resources to help me in my life journey. So, challenges are done. You can follow us on Twitter as much as like us on Facebook. And you could get to know more about life coaching through my website. Thank you so much for all of you for taking the time and chance and actually being courageous and getting to know something that was never discussed before. Thank you so much, everyone.